Well, good morning, afternoon. See, I'm still not awake. Anyway, good afternoon. I'm Jim Sweeney. I'm from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I'm the Commercialization Readiness Program Manager for the Air Force. And also the other duties as assigned, I'm the Deputy SBIR Program Manager for the Air Force as well. I attended an event very similar to this last year, and I thought that everybody in the audience really exuded everything that we're trying to do and get from the small businesses, so they can understand what the SBIR program is. You know, when you look at it, we're kind of, and this is for all of the government folks, we're very much like a venture capital type of activity, a limited venture capital, except we don't want to own any part of your company other than the technology, the innovation that you have developed and brought to the marketplace. That's our prime purpose for funding this in the first place. There's a lot of folks that when they're out hunting for money, the venture capitalist wants to own a chunk of the show, and you basically lose a lot of basically your baby because someone else is playing in it, as opposed to letting you grow and develop your company the way that you're supposed to. On my chart right here, you know, once upon a time, the world was thinking that there would be an opportunity to fly someday. You know, if God wanted us to fly, He would have given us wings. Well, as you can see, all the high and mighty technocrats were saying that, oh my gosh, there's just tons and tons of stuff to do. And I want to draw your attention to the date. That's like 9 October back in '03 from the New York Times. And then you get these small guys, some rebels. You know, you may recognize the name, you know, Wilbur and Orville Wright or something like that, in Dayton, Ohio, and above it said, we got a long ways to go before we can do anything. And they said, oh, no worries, we've already started. That's representative of all of you. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for that kind of enthusiasm. We're looking for the agility and the flexibility that basically only the small guys, such as yourself, can bring to the party. The big guys, they have lots of money. There's just, it seems like almost an endless pool, and for the small guys, you know, you have to struggle for every inch of the walk. So if you can kind of keep in mind what Orville and Wilbur and Orville did, that's kind of the way I look at what you've done. Oops, let's try that again. Yeah, any questions? Anyway, what's really important about this whole thing, once I figure out how to use the system, we've come to learn over the past couple of years to where what the small business community brings to what we're trying to do. You know, in the Air Force, we've got the Air Force Research Lab, just an incredible number and level of highly educated, very smart people. And I want to tell you that last year alone, my group, my staff, we talked to just around 900 small businesses and universities. And we actually responded to about 94–95% of them with the purpose of trying to find some place for them to do something that they do. The other, let's say 6%, those were the guys that showed up with, innovative technologies like screwdriver, sharpener, those kinds of things. It wasn't really in the swim lane of what we're trying to do. Since I've basically, my mission is to support the warfighter. And every day you look in the newspaper or listen to the radio, we're always doing something overseas. And our goal is to send our warfighter, our sons and daughters overseas, and make it so that it's not a fair fight. We want them to have the leverage, to have them have the latest and the best possible equipment so that when they face the other side, it's not a fair fight whatsoever. Because we want to bring these kids home. We want to bring them whole. We want to bring them happy. We want to bring them so that they can be back with us. And the only way to do that is we're kind of asking for your help to help us do that. Your technology is what's going to get us there. I've been to several events recently, General Electric, even Raytheon and Boeing and a couple of the others, and they showed this thing called an S-graph. And if you look between and read between the lines of this S-graph, basically what they're saying is, we got these incredible technologies that we've already developed, but we don't have a whole lot of new ideas. We're almost out of new ideas. When was the last time you saw a truly revolutionary commercial airplane? Sure, you got the 787 and whatever Airbus throws in the mix. But is that truly revolutionary? What about a new propulsion engine? Have we seen anything just incredibly outside what we've already got? We've made improvements, we've modified it, but what have we done that's really different? And that fits across the whole spectrum. And that's why we're talking to you. We think that what you've got in the way of ideas, your IP, your data, and all of that, it's really important that we get some of that brought to the party. We need to change what we're doing. We need to make it better, faster, more reliable, less expensive, hopefully. You know, all of the buzzwords that you hear all the time, but we're really serious about making that happen. We do consider the small businesses a key component on where we're at. Congress thinks so as well. They made this a law. The SBIR program, they said this is important that we get the small guys a chance. And the SBIR program was to break the mold that all the money only went to the big guys. Well, we're trying to get you guys that opportunity, and quite often, and I've heard it this morning from a couple of the other folks ahead of me, the big guys are reaching out to the small guys. And as part of my program, I've seen it firsthand, and I'll discuss that a little bit later. So as you're all sitting here trying to digest your lunch, I want you to really understand, you guys are a critical component for us being successful. And as Bob Smith basically stated, we're not successful if you guys aren't successful. None of this will happen without you and your participation. So the Air Force, we have a vision, and we're trying to make sure that we give the small guys opportunities that would allow them to excel, and for us to gain the benefit of the products that you've got. And remember, that only equates to if somebody shows up at the end of the day with a checkbook. So if you've got a technology that works, that's where we show up with the checkbook. And the real critical thing here is, it's great that you got this lab project going. I mean, we've got that back at the Air Force. We got lots of science and technology going on. We got a lot of lab work. Doesn't benefit anybody, really, unless it goes to somebody that can use it. So from my perspective as the commercialization guy, I'm looking for the transition. I'm looking for you guys to run your business so that we can buy the product and you can make the living that you're looking for while providing us the technology that we're desperately seeking. So at the bottom, the commercialization, that's huge. So as you're thinking of new products, as you're thinking of your current products, and congratulations to those that have had a SBIR award previously. I'll discuss that a little bit later in my talk, but congratulations to you, because that is incredibly competitive. And the fact that you rose to the surface on that, that says a whole lot about both your business model and the technology that you bring. Little hard to see. I was sitting in the back, so these charts are really great when you're sitting on the screen, but really, all of what we're doing, it starts with an idea. And then you pursue the SBIR process. And here's where I fit in for the commercialization area. And you'll notice it says the primes, and then you got the Rapid Innovation Fund, and here's the ultimate user, the warfighter. And I'll caveat that a little bit later as well, but you're not in this by yourself. You don't have the capital, you don't have all the resources you need. So quite often the person and the company sitting beside you could be a collaborator. It could be working with a major defense guy. It could be working with Ford Motor Company, Procter & Gamble, Kellogg's. It could be Google or Apple, or you fill in the blank. It could be any of those. Remember, taxpayer money is going to fund the SBIR program, and if what you've got actually benefits any one of those groups, the preference would be, I'm spending Air Force money on this, so I'd like to see the Air Force gain momentum, but if that just doesn't happen, I would really like to see your aperture opened up to where you've considered other areas that your technology and all the development you've pulled together, consider that. My goal is to make sure, and my preference is, that you make sure that you're making some money, you're working like a real business. You got to remember, if you're making money on this program and you're running your company to where it's successful, your employees, you'll be hiring more smarter employees. They'll be able to send their kids to college, they'll be buying new cars, they'll buy new houses. You're going to need a bigger building because you're putting more people in it, and you're paying more taxes. There is a good side to that. But as far as all of that, everybody's winning. The economy is working. And you've already heard all the stats. Good 90% of all new jobs come from small businesses. That's you. All the big guys, they've got pretty much what they already have, and they're even downsizing a little bit, but it's the small guys that are bringing the fun to the party. And so that's why, once again, we're reflecting on what you do. Here's how it works in the Air Force. I know it works the same in the Navy and DARPA, the Army, and all the others, the National Science Foundation, NIH. You got to understand, what am I looking for? You know, what is the Air Force looking for? And the only way that you can actually make that happen is everything we're doing, and this is going to be a key term for you, it's all relationship-based. If you have not developed a relationship with somebody that has the potential to fund you and gain the benefit of your product, we don't know your company, we don't know your product, we don't know you. If we know who you are, we know what you make and what you do, we're more inclined to go to you to satisfy our requirements. The Air Force is really, really large. We've got like 265,000 plus people. And oftentimes, like I said last year, we talked about 900 smalls and universities. And they said, you know, I've already talked to the Air Force. And they said, no. And my response was, not to be a smart aleck, was, so you talked to all 265,000 of the Air Force people, and every one of them said no? And, you know, I was sincere. I did not want to look like a smart aleck, but my point is, there's a lot of folks that if we socialize what you're doing, bring it out and we talk to folks and we surface the technology that you're bringing, good chance we'll find somebody that can find a home and actually initiate business with you. We're looking for you guys to be problem solvers. We've got technology issues that we cannot solve internally. Regardless of what you hear, we don't have all the answers. That's why we're reaching out to you. This is so important. I work within the Air Force Research Lab Small Business Directorate, but even more important, I'm with the Air Force Small Business Program, and the intent there is we're reaching out to you because it's critical for us to achieve the goals and results that we're looking for. Real important, remember I mentioned it's relationship-based. Develop your networks. You talk to so-and-so, he may not have the answer you're looking for. First question would be, well, who would you suggest I talk with? Don't take the, well, sorry, I don't have anything for you right now. That's really not a great answer, but quite often, as you've already heard and you can understand, a lot of folks are really busy and they're not going to spend the bandwidth to pull that together. So when you're working your relationship, try to develop your network. There'll be something in there that could potentially take you forward. Well, gosh, the Air Force is so big, and my company is so small, I have no idea what they're looking for. I love this chart, as simple as it is. This is what the Air Force buys every single year. And there is something that you do. There is a capability that you bring, the innovation, that technology that you've developed that'll satisfy something on this chart. What I'm saying is there's a whole lot of opportunities, and sometimes you have to dig a little bit, but those opportunities are real and they exist. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, for instance, is the acquisition center for the Air Force. We expend well over $46 billion a year. There is money on the table, and my preference would be that all of you get a chance to take some of that home as you develop the technologies we're looking for. This is a real important chart, as simple as it is. So what we're looking for something that's different, something that changes how we approach the problems that are consistently presented to us. The revolutionary side, have we done it before? Is this just the same old thing? Maybe we're looking for something a little different, a lot different. That's where you come in. It's got to be important. It's got to be something that satisfies a requirement that we've got. Not necessarily looking for screwdriver sharpeners, but if it's a technology that would work, also it has to be responsive. Unfortunately, the SBIR program, if we're in a hurry, the SBIR program's probably not going to satisfy the need, because it takes about 5 to 7 years to get through the SBIR program. A lot of the folks in the Air Force say, oh my God, I don't have that kind of time. And the question we've asked is, well, how long have you been worried about it? Oh my God, the last 15, 20 years. So they can't wait the 5 to 7 years, but they've waited the last 15 to 20. So what you bring to the table, and the reason that we're so excited to be working with the small businesses, you're agile and you're flexible. You accomplish things that the big guys and even the Air Force can't do by ourselves. That's one of your mainstays. As part of my commercialization readiness program, the real purpose of that is I'm looking to transition that technology. If you look at it from a different perspective, you're providing the push. Hey, I have this really great thing. It does so and so. It does this and that. Well, I provide the pull. This is what we're looking for, and my job is to bring all of that technology and put it in front of somebody that can actually use it. And this is how I do it. I've got staff all across the country, and they're located in every one of our research and development facilities. I'm at Wright-Patterson, and that's the headquarters for the Air Force Research Lab. But we've got folks out in Los Angeles. At the SMC, we got the test center guys. We got the guys that maintain the airplanes. We've got the weapons guys. All of those are looking for technologies. Got to remember, and I'm preaching to the choir, you're probably not going to design the brand new engine. You're probably not going to design a brand new airplane or the landing gear. But you'll probably come up with a process or a component that makes it more reliable, more cost efficient, and more durable. That's where you can really make progress on it. By the way, all of these charts, they're available. I'm not going to brief all of the charts that I've put in my package, but there's a lot of information. I'll touch on quite a few of them, but as part of the distribution of the charts, I hope they do make them available. That was the purpose of my bringing them. You've already seen this chart before, or actually you've seen a chart very similar to this, but look at the percentage. Look at the size of the companies. When we're talking small, the Wright brothers were a big giant factory of 2. But the average, what we're showing, is 1 to 9. And you look at the 250 to 500, there's a whole lot less of them. There's a whole lot more of the small, ready to go. And when you get up to about the 25 person, then the requirements change a little bit. So the heyday is really here for the real small guys. I strongly encourage you to grow at a controlled rate that you're comfortable with, because that's important that you make that happen. You get bigger contracts, you get more contracts, and you're bringing more very talented people in. So that was just a very interesting chart. Part of what we do, we're kind of like a baseball scouting expedition. We've got the guy on the mound. We've got the guy in the reserve waiting for the pitcher on the mound to tire out. So we've already got those guys. You know, they're already in the cycle. What we're looking for is, now we need a new pitcher. We need a guy with a curveball or throws a real straight fastball. This is you guys. This is what we're doing right now. We're trying to find you so that we can bring it to the team. And first time I saw that chart, I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. But we're almost like we're on a scouting mission. We're trying to find out what you do, what your capability is, and then we're trying to find folks that you can talk to and at least get your foot in the door and do what you do best, talk about your company. Now, as I mentioned, I'm the Commercialization Readiness Program Manager. But you've seen these charts before, and I'm not going to bore you to tears with these charts all again. But I did want to point out, you know, you've all heard about the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But you know, where you're making your money and where this should happen as part of your culture, as part of how you're going to address your business, is way over here, the phase 0. Hey, I got this great idea. This is what I think it could do. This is how many of these I think I can put together. And this is also how I think at the end of the day I'm going to be able to sell the product, who's going to use the product, and how I'm going to develop my product to make it even more advanced. This is one of the most incredible blocks. That's what you do as your business. You're developing what your product, what your company is going to be. And then as you're looking at it, you know, sure, you got the phase 1, you got the phase 2, and you come up with, let's say, $1,150,000, let's just say, through your phase 2. Well, then we have a thing called a follow-on or a sequential phase 2, so there could be potentially another 1.5 million. And it gets up to be about 3.15-ish million. That's a lot of money for folks that you go to a bank and they'll turn you down because you weren't going to give them your first child or your, mortgage your house over to them. You need to be looking right over here. This is where you're going to make the money. And I have to be honest with you, I grew up in a small business family. Do you remember the day? I'm going to date myself. Sorry about that. Everybody liked to take pictures, and they had the little canister of 35 millimeter film. And before anything real revolutionary came along, you'd have to take it down and you send it to Kodak, and 3 weeks later you get your stack of pictures. Well, then some guy came up with this idea, well, how about if we get a 1 hour developing, and it takes the film out of the canister, develops it, puts it in the envelope, it RFIDs it, all that kind of thing, and stamps the cost on it within an hour. That was my dad's equipment. He came up with that. Kodak, Agfa, Fuji, Walmart, Moto Photo, I'll let you name them. They bought the equipment from my dad. And it took a long time for that to happen. Mom had to go to work. We had 4 mortgages on the house. Everything was, in high school, I very rarely saw my dad because he was on the road. He drove across country because he couldn't afford to fly. He was trying to sell the concept. And then he sold it. And then he hit it over the fence. Dad made a lot of money. So just by that alone, I lived the small business thing. I saw the trials and tribulations. That's you. And hopefully we can get you past that. The money that we come up with for the SBIR program, it's not a ton of cash. It's more of a lubricant. It's just to help you get along so that you can get your process moving. Phase 1, that's great. There's 150K, and then you get up here, and then you got another million, let's say. That's not real money. It is money, but that's not where you want to be. Dad retired. He's living in Rancho Santa Fe in San Diego. Dad did okay. So when I think of what you're doing and how you bring it to the party, I'm looking for you to be as successful as you can. I'm not going to hold you back. And I mentioned earlier, for those that have already had a phase 1 and a phase 2, my hat's off to you. You are my hero. You've already competed. And where that's going with this particular point of discussion is, you need to understand that that was a heavily and a very difficult competitive environment, and you floated to the surface. I need to get you guys so that you move to the phase 3. If you look at really what a phase 3 is, it's transition. It's move your product out of your plant to somebody that can use it. It's commercialize your product. Sure, the Air Force, the Navy, DARPA, Army, all the others would like to use your product, but we're not going to restrict you if you wanted to go to Procter & Gamble, Ford, General Motors, Kellogg's, Apple, fill in the blank. The real goal is, would really like to see you make the real money. You're putting a whole lot of sleepless nights in. You're sweating real hard to make this happen. Let us help you at least grease the skids a little bit. I really would like to see this. Congress has basically dictated, hey, would somebody in this room kindly tell me, we give you hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Would somebody kindly tell me where we've had any success? I'm looking for you to help me out there, because we have to report to Congress every year how we're doing with our SBIR program. And what we've started to do with my commercialization program is we're starting to socialize those success stories. We've even gone into the high-tech area. We're tweeting. We're coming up with videos. We'll even go out to a company that was incredibly successful. We'll videotape them, what the product is, what they went through, and we'll bring that and float that past Congress. They're no worse, or they're no better than us. They hate to see the New York City phone book sitting on their desk and they have to read it. But if you bring a video, remember when you go into Best Buy, first thing you do is you drift past the TVs, and it's, you know, everybody's just got a Bart Simpson look about them. They're looking at the TVs. Well, that's the same with our Congress guys. They can take a 2 to 5 minute video and they'll say, oh, I get that. That's really a cool idea. Well, congratulations. You guys did a great job. To quote Bob Smith again, if you're not successful, I'm not successful. And Congress wants us to be successful. It's all taxpayers' money, and all of us that have talked to you today, we're all stewards of the taxpayers' money. So the way that we can get the best out of that is to get you to where you've developed your product, delivered your product, continue to improve your product, and then we would like to reach out to you and say, talk to me about that so I can show this to Congress. This is, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about what the legislative background is. You'll have plenty of opportunities to get your heads around that. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to get the private sector, not the megalith companies that have lots of money already. We're trying to bring you guys into the fold. I just heard it a few moments ago, the gal in front of me, she said, well, yeah, we talked to this company and they said, we're all over the small business. I thought that was great. Part of my CRP program is, and I'm going to bolt through a couple of these, and I'll get to that discussion in a second, but as the DoD component, one thing we're trying to do within the Air Force is we're trying to get away from just being technocrats, we know the science, we know the technology. We're also trying to install in them a little bit of business savvy. What we're finding is the engineers tend to talk engineering and the scientists talk science. But no one really has an idea, well, what am I going to do with it, or how do I get it out of the lab? That's what we're trying to install in them. Incidentally, I did mention that this is very competitive. Well, the Air Force has just instituted a new thing. As you're well aware, we've gone out for solicitation, or we're in the process of going out for solicitation for our topic call for the 17.1 SBIR cycle. The Air Force has to compete for the number of topics they're going to get. The organizations that do extremely well will get a lot more topics. And the others that just do a so-so job and, hey, we'll burn through the money and when we're done, we'll go do something different, they're probably going to end up with nothing or very few. So it's not just the smalls, you folks, that are competing to get the business, but we've instituted that for the Air Force. And as you know, when somebody moves your cheese, you get a little uncomfortable. A lot of folks are uncomfortable right now, but that's a good thing. Here's what you guys do. That's what the Air Force did before on the previous chart, but this is what you do. You need to understand what we're doing, what we're interested in. And when you look at what if you go out to the SBIR website, the Air Force has one, I'll provide the link and everything, you can kind of see what areas of interest that we're pursuing. If that fits within what you're doing or you think that you could fit within that, I would say engage, make it happen, try to develop a relationship. You got to remember, you send in a cold proposal, somebody has to understand what you're doing, why you're there, and be an advocate for you. So if you have a relationship going into this thing, they'll know that you're going to be bringing that in as a proposal. They'll be looking for it, and you want them to be one of your champions. That's the only way you're going to be really, really successful. History has shown, since we've started the SBIR program, if you've got nobody in your corner that's going to advocate what you're doing, it's not real likely that you're going to be really successful. And as I said previously, I need all of you to be successful as much as you can. We have the different sites that you can register. That's really, really important. You'll understand what we're looking for. And then when you write up your proposals, it's got to be well thought out. It's got to be well written. I would not necessarily encourage you to go to the weeds and talk ones and zeros necessarily. You'll have plenty of opportunity to do that. Tell us what your product is, what's your technology, what's really new and innovative about what you're trying to do. Who's going to use your product? Where do you think it's going to go? And also, this is really key, I'm going to foot stomp, kind of indicate where your transition is going to be. We're going to take this product. We're going to be able to market it, sell it, and produce it however you do that. A lot of the proposals we get say, well, I'm going to get $150K and I'm going to do such and such. tell us where it's going to go. You'll gain a whole lot more traction if we know what your product is, where you're going to be using it, where we're going to use it, and see if we can fit that into our requirements. Keep in mind also, the Air Force tends to be fickle at times. We're always chasing the next brightest object. And if you've received your Phase 1 or Phase 2 award, and you're working steadily, you got your head down, and you're making lots and lots of progress, and then you show up at the last day with your report, well, remember I said it's all relationship-based? If you've developed a relationship, you're talking with the people, the principals that are working on your particular project, you'll know what they're thinking, you'll be communicating to them the progress you're making, and one of those fickle moments where the Air Force goes in a completely different divergent tangent, chasing a bright, shiny object, you guys will already know about it. I've already said you're agile and flexible, so you'll make the needed adjustments to satisfy and provide the solution that we're looking for. Unfortunately, quite often, a lot of the companies will show up with a report and said, hey, I did just what you wanted me to do. And the question is, and who are you? You know, I don't have really a relationship with you. And by the way, we're not working that technology anymore. So you feel that particular company that submitted that, they're feeling a little bit out of whack. They feel like they've been left alone, and everything they've done is for naught, because now they need to get into the Phase 2. The company that gets a Phase 2, they're the ones that the Air Force knows who they are, what they're doing, and how they're going to get there. Those are the ones that'll get the Phase 2, I promise you. But those that don't, example being, when we were over in Iraq, there was a company that they went Phase 3. They developed mobile housing units that comes in a box, and it's almost like you pull the string, like one of those airplane floats when the plane hits the ocean. Float comes out. Well, this house, they could put it anywhere, and they could put people in it. Well, we left Iraq. He has a whole warehouse of these buildings. Nobody's buying the buildings, and he's almost out of business. So you cannot be just a one-trick pony. Always keep in mind what the Air Force is doing. What does the customer want? And that's really your forte, because you'll make sure it happens that what the customer is looking for, that's what you're going to provide. Data rights. This is always a point of discussion. It was just brought up a few moments before I got up. This is huge. Keep in mind, I'm not allowed. Bob Smith kind of mentioned about the having to go get some new outfits to fit the prison environment. I'm not looking forward to doing that. Congress says I cannot do that. I promise you, I will not do that. But what we're looking for is, we're looking for you to be comfortable in the fact that we're going to use your data for the purposes for which it was designed. We're not going to use it outside the box. You'll know where we're using it and how we're using it, but it's your data. This is stuff, granted, we provided some Air Force funding, but it's your data. At the very last day when the contract is over, the clock starts, and you got like 5 years, and you can renew that every time you get a new contract. Now remember, I did mention that we're very interested in you going towards the Phase 3, because that's when you become a company. That's when you start making the real money. That's when you start making the real decisions on how your company's going to operate. And that's really the gold ring for this entire SBIR process. You've already cut your teeth. You know where it's going. Phase 3 is that's where you're making your money and growing your business. As I did mention, the government, we do get the ability to use your data, but we're also put in a position we have to protect that. And it's in our best interest to do that. If you feel slighted or if it doesn't work your way, you're not going to bring your technology to when I have a need for a new solution. So So what we're saying is get involved. One of the things I do for the Commercialization Readiness Program, it's a little different than what the Navy does, that Bob talked to you about a little bit earlier. We have things called Small Business Industry Days, and they're actually proven to be pretty good. A little bit of pushback from within the Air Force initially, but once we've conducted one of these Small Business Industry Days, they said, oh my gosh, why didn't we do this sooner? A Small Business Industry Day, this is where we talk to each of the Air Force centers, the sustainment, the test, the research guys, the armament, and the space guys, all of them. The real purpose is tell us what keeps you awake at night. This is the real important stuff. It's not I'm not looking for an org chart. I don't really care about the phone numbers and who Bob and Sally are. I don't really care. What we're looking for is what keeps you up at night? What technology, what problem are you trying to solve? And then what my staff does, we take that information from the Air Force and we'll go out and we actually data mine all across the country. We find small businesses that have the ability. We hunt them down by their DUNS or their NAICS number. We hunt them down and they provide us a statement of capability, and then we provide that to the particular Air Force organization. We had the armament, we had the test, and we had the sustainment. We brought this big list of companies, and they say, I want to talk to that guy, that guy, that guy, not that guy. Okay. And I'm almost out of time. Or am I out of time? Oh, I'm out of time. I'm talking too much. Sorry. Anyway, the next one we've got is out in Los Angeles in October. And it's for the space guys. And we'll probably run across some of your names on that, and you're more than welcome to participate. And here's the address for that. Stay connected. Here's our contact info. By the way, we do have an 800 number, and when you get the number, or you'll actually get an operator, or you get a real live person as opposed to punching your phone to death. If you have questions on how the SBIR program works, we'll get you the answer. If we don't have it, we will get back with you. It's just a great group of folks. We're extremely small business friendly. I want you to take that as one of the takeaways from this event. This is important to us, really important to me. I've never had so much fun doing something where I actually get paid for than getting the opportunity to talk with you and present kind of what the Air Force is doing. So everybody says, well, gosh, I'm just a small guy. Well, we started with that, and most of us have flown on really cool airplanes ever since. So what are you guys going to do? I'm looking for you guys to step up and help us solve the problems we've got. By the way, and I know I'm out of time. We just came up with, we just published this booklet about 3 weeks ago. It's for phase 3s. And I also have in my presentation materials, thought it was a little bit closer, guess not. Here we are. I had a couple of these. I think I've probably got a couple more in the back. But the problem we found is industry didn't know what a phase 3 was. Our contracting folks in the Air Force didn't know what a phase 3 was. A lot of the program managers didn't know what a phase 3 is. It's an intuitive book. We had some very creative people on my staff put it together. I think you'll enjoy it. And anyway, here's the website. You can get a soft copy. That's all part of the charts that I've got. Really encourage you to do that. And if there's any in the back, help yourself to that. And then we've also got a program overview. This is what this SBIR, Air Force SBIR, and it mentions the CRP program. Real easy. There is contact info. If you have any questions whatsoever, please do get a hold of us. We do have live operators. Do I have time for a question, or am I out? Are there any questions? I kind of raced through this, and I apologize, but Anyway, I've got some one-on-ones tomorrow, and I look forward to talking with you if you've signed up. Anyway, thank you so much. This is really a great event. Anita, you guys have really done another wonderful job, and thanks for having me.